It's interesting sometimes to hear the disclaimer. No pressure, right? No pressure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I am so happy I gladly shared this laughter with you. Just saying. So everything is divine plan, I feel, in my life at this point. Even when I look back at it, I was listening to each sentence, and it was saying for my introduction, I was like, so grateful for all those experiences, to have that richness of exposure, of culture and life and studies and just exploring, basically. And then the song came along that we just sang, the first and the last line. Couldn't have done by myself. Spirit always have led my way. So that's a small introduction to my journey in my own unique way. Today there is a little bit of intrigue within myself, and I will say this, I usually say my story because I know the best and I'm living it, so I know firmly where I'm coming from, where that pivoting is. But of late, among the stirred chaos in the universe, life is just sometimes feel too fast moving. I may have been around 7 or 8 years old where this first thought came along into my life, and I was processing as I was preparing to today. It has been a few days, not this morning like usual, so I've been sitting on this, mulling over this thought. So before we get into this share, I want you to know that when I speak from inspiration, even though I have bullet points, but I'm here with you in inspiration, and I will have to live these words when I walk outside that door. So just understand it's very personally applicable. So before we get going, I want everybody to just say this with me. Who am I?
Who am I?
And I'm pretty sure that 7, 8-year-old kid in me had no clue what that phrase meant when I asked that. And there has been always a religious backdrop in my family as we grew up, and there was religion. And that phrase for me at that young age was being presented to the pastors and preachers that were coming home for service. And they gave me the best answers. I clearly don't have a memory of what the response was, but I feel that was my first spiritual intrigue and the journey that led me on. And even at that age, I had sensitivity to see spirit objectively, which got faded over time. I'm more into the sensing, hearing, knowing phase rather than objective clairvoyance I once had, like I could see you. So this is to just say, when that question arose, it was about what was going on in my life. And I'm pretty sure in your own capacities, in your own journey, somewhere you have probably asked that question to yourself. I don't feel that question arises when the path is absolutely clear, or you have clarity of where you're heading for, or what you are about to accomplish, or you've completed something. Those questions come when you don't feel either connected with things, or you don't feel alignment with it. And that's where the divine spirit, infinite spirit, is always at play. So before we look into this thought any further, I am also very confident each and every one of us somewhere has sowed a seed, planted a sapling, and observed it take its course, right? So for today's example, you would imagine as though you have a sunflower seed with you. Sunflower is our symbol for our religion of spiritualism. So when you are holding that seed in your hand before planting it, you would understand that seed itself has a blueprint. That once it sprouts, once it takes form, it will become a sunflower, or it will produce sunflower, right? So we do understand that. But what is the inquiry here that has been sitting with me? Does the even seed know what's about to happen? The seed itself knows the blueprint. Does it know it's going to grow straight, or is it going to go 45 degrees at an angle? Does it going to get picked by something else? Or even if it comes to become a plant, what kind of fruit it's going to bear, even that is not so much part of the blueprint. The only knowing the seed has, I have viability, I have life within me, and when it's given the proper care and nurture, it's going to sprout itself. Think about yourself as that seed that took place that year and where you are today. And within those years, there definitely has been most likely several opportunities where you may have come into this question of, who am I? You know, life is about crossroads, life is about decisions and choices, life is about complexity. I don't think any one of us in this room sits here without saying, oh, my life has always been one linear motion, right? That loss and grief and the journey of the other side, the unknown, always is coexisting with us at all times. There's something more, something bigger at work within ourselves. Even that seed that we're referencing here, when the life starts, when the environment is met in the right order, when the first sprout comes up, it still does not know how it's going to look weeks later on. What is going to attract in its life? I have narrow leaf sunflower trying to get out of my pot after the freeze. Deers are having a wonderful dinner at night. Plants are not giving up. I'm not giving up. The cycle is going. And I'm looking at all this yesterday, working in my yard, like oh, here's the analogy of what Spirit is providing me to work with. But also understanding, you know, there's the plant's journey. There's somewhere there. My job is now to go find itself a cage so that it can come up. These long, narrow-leaf sunflowers are beautiful. They grow tall and bushy. They're wild once they take root. And that's the part is there. Even if our journey is the most wildest and most haphazard, there are things that are taking root in us. And the great infinite Spirit, and even those that have passed on in our lives, even before we were born, they are still part of the soul's connection for us, do get to observe that richness of life itself. And they observe. They're always observed. So the ideation, supportive ideation here is, no matter what we're doing, we're never alone. That golden rule could just become simple because somebody's always watching us. And that becomes so much intriguing to say that. But at the same time, the thought here is to understand the discovery within that question, who am I, can open so many doors and potentials of inquiry. Sometimes that can lead to self-sabotage that we are all very skilled at. You know, we all have some opportunity. We shot ourselves in the foot. You know, we have been our worst critic, worst game changer. But there's the opposite side to it as well. So thinking from that part, spiritualist philosophy is such a rich place to be because it includes physical laws, natural laws, and spiritual laws. And physical and chemical laws are pretty standard because if you heat something, it's going to create heat. If you do something, they're very straightforward. Natural laws do not have a linear motion. They don't have a one-way track. One law could lead to something that you have to explore along the way. So one of my wonderful teachers that come and speak here, we have discovered in conversation, and she's a wonderful mentor for me in many ways, and we've discovered not one law can operate on its own. It has to be supported by other law. And so is the law of chemistry and law of physics. They are also engaging with other laws to create an experience. So at all times, my voice standing in this room could be significant, or me sitting in my home thinking about all this could be significant if I do not have an audience, or you as a listener are not engaged in your own stories in your mind. You know, if you're grocery shopping somewhere, even that itself is something that is happening while you're present here. So life, through that lenses, move on. My intrigue in this is, those that have passed on were not much different than who I am or who you are. So their wonderment was beauty in their own lives. What they did, why they did, perhaps stems or leads to that question, who am I? And regardless of what their participation in life is, that question is a very potent question of allowing you to sprout your own seed. Right? So the Spirit is guiding us, is watching us, is observing us, yet not really directing us in any given shape or form. And I'm also very convinced in my own version, and the disclaimer is right, is my conviction, to understand this, that this Spirit that is creating the experience in my life is responsible just as much as I am in my choices. Because I have grown up in that part, when we make good choice, God is helping us. If we make bad choice, somebody else is helping us. Oh no, it's the same entity that's helping us in both ways. And either of those decisions and choices culminate in an experience that is life-altering. It may not be altering my life, but because of my choices and my actions and my participation, somebody else's life could change. So you have to understand that one episode of experience is a domino effect all around. Even today, your thoughts are going to resonate with this conversation. It's going to create its own momentum. You may respond consciously or subconsciously how it goes out of this room and how you participate with it. So it just is there. So one of the natural laws are we are all connected. That's the oneness principle in spiritual language is there. No matter where we are, who we are, what we are thinking we are all connected with that. So this who am I is a question. What over time with our deliberate participation or our conscious decision or following within our spirit, I would like you to say this with me, who I am.
Who I am.
Could you feel the difference in those things? Those are the same three words. Could you feel the difference in it? You could repeat it in your head. Who am I and who I am? Two different vibratory indexes. So who am I? If that is a question, who I am is a starting of the answer. Who I am is compassionate. Who I am is kind. Who I am is open to all things. Who I am, a presentation of God just like anybody else out there. Who I am, one with nature. Who I am, the soul that resonates with everything. So you understand that who am I question is setting us up for inquiry and investigating our spirit to discover the statements that follow with who I am. Who I am is a beautiful starting point to claim your power. Because the first one is making you question it, the second one is wanting you to claim it. Even if you say, who I am is not what I am supposed to be or I want to be, that itself is leading on to say, what are you going to do about it? It's sometimes easier to tell somebody, do this or do that, or you should be doing this, or how it needs to be. But it's nearly challenging when it is self-applied. It takes a lot of grit to follow that space. And I'm so fortunate for the forefathers that left us with such great knowledge of spiritualism, the phenomena, the experiences that they have had in those times. Part of this arrangement of this conversation, I could just feel Allan Kardec, a famous spiritist that was a very big proponent of proving physical phenomena and spiritualist experience is very real. I could feel his presence in my synopsis as I was coming to conclusion of this conversation. I could just feel his energy there. I'm going to use give you a couple of examples. Do you know who Alexander Fleming is? Right? Alexander Fleming was a scientist, and he has his own lab, and he was really chasing to discover Staphylococcus bacteria and to work with it. one day he got tired, he needed a vacation, he went on his vacation, he left his lab as it was set up. When he came back, he saw the mold growing that was not allowing the bacteria to grow. So part of that discovery and the aha with him is he found penicillin, which has since then been helpful in many cures. Now, I'm tying this in. His wonderment about his discovery was not intended to discover penicillin, but it came upon that way. So when we are chasing our thought of who am I, and if I have the idea of becoming, I'll tell you, my idea was to own a Jeep, a dog, a horse. I've owned a dog, I haven't had a horse, Jeep, I've got the Subaru there, closing up. But I just think as a growing up kid, that was my idea, and I wanted to have my little 3-5 acre of land, and I just wanted to ride my Jeep, ride my horse, walk with the dog. Some fascinating idea from a comic book I used to read as a kid. But that comic book was so real. But my part is, I knew my imprint, I knew my soul, and even in today's value of life, I know what that imprint is. But I'm also enjoying this share with everybody who I am. I have no clue at that point. Some days I still wonder, sitting in my chair, who am I today? At minimum, I am a spiritualist. I believe in communication with the afterlife. We create evidence, we create experiences, we look for experiences. But in that example of Alexander Fleming, that blueprint was there. He was on to discover something. And he ended up discovering something different and yet useful in our lives. One more example here. Then who knows Percy Spencer? Percy Spencer in 1940s was trying to refine and build radar system. And he was working at it, and he was tweaking it, and he was tweaking it. So his idea or his blueprint was to come up with radar. And one day he was just trying to understand his experiment. He took a popcorn kernel and put it between two magnets, and the popcorn kernel popped. And he, at that point in 1940, discovered microwave. I think everybody in this room has a microwave. Once again, his desire to refine something, his blueprint of desire to manifesting something led to some other discoveries. My point is, don't dismiss your journey. Don't dismiss the great spirit that is working through you in your own best way. It may not be exactly what we think from our perceptive value where we're heading, but we have the capacity to touch lives, make a difference, create difference in anybody that needs that at that moment. So our byproduct through our own discovery is, just to understand, in my blueprint I will create experiences that has the ability to touch and move people's life, even if it's one person. And a part of that awareness is to say where it leads you, where it takes you in your own journey. So this who I am is whatever I am in this very moment. Because I do not know what's next. Even I do not know when we get into the message service what's next. But I just wanted to understand that part of that understanding. Whatever this very moment is happening in me or in you, this is who we are. Whatever is a learned behavior through our self-criticism or societal understanding of learning, that is also the part of that inquiry, who am I? But that leads to the discovery of who I am, potentially can be. So spiritualism, if you take it from that little perspective to understand through the spiritualist perspective, these are the natural laws operating, allowing us to get back to us no matter where we feel are taking a detour or we are taking a segue from our main focus purpose. We have examples around us within our family members or friends that we see their journey, and sometimes we can be critical of those observations. But if we return to look at me where I am in my own way, I might be doing the best, but I also have a potential to be unlimited because the infinite spirit is infinite. So investigate these two phrases and thought as you would go, and to understand there's so much information available through the law of attraction, through the law of cause and effect, law of consequences, law of correspondence, law of magnetism. What are you willing to stimulate when you ask that question today or later? Who am I? And let the rest be discovery. Thank you for giving me your spirit and time to work through this conversation. I appreciate you.